Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Renee, this is the house of God. Why are you not at Whipple protesting? Why are you not standing up with your Latino and Somali community?
Interrupting worship. That's what these chaos makers are doing. All of this type of behavior is plaguing the Democrat-led city of Minneapolis at this point. A group of angry protesters, heck, let's call them agitators, and when some yell anything other than the protesting, we can call them criminals. They're screaming and chanting profanities in the name of God, actually, they said, to get rid of ICE in the name of Jesus. Renee Good, also something that they were shouting about. She was the woman who was fatally shot by ICE earlier this month after she rammed her car into one of the federal agents. One video appears to show a protester inside that church, calling churchgoers, quote, comfortable white people, while shouting, you have your nice jewelry, but what do you do to stand with your Somali community? We have yet to see either Governor Tim Walz or Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frost.
Welcome back to Whistleblower Wednesday. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and X-Spaces simulcast. Well, foreign and domestic, resetting America is not just a need, but required in order to save it. When places of worship are attacked simply because white people are the Christian worshipers, society is at a place of great danger. That is where America is today domestically, as we focus on policies that serve Americans first, inwardly and outwardly at the rest of the world. What President Trump ran on and won on, winning a historic second term, is working. And the globalists and the Marxists inside this country, around the world, are all upset. I say let them stew in their anger and watch us win some more. And we are. Peace is breaking out more around the world today than is war, as we see history's first Board of Peace be created by President Trump over the Gaza situation. America's economy has come roaring back, and yes, even some liberal white women have been won over by those facts. That's one of them, escaping the propaganda narrative of the likes of CNN and the others that are extreme left with lots of money in the corporate media. President Trump is at Davos today, the beating heart of globalism, and I hope he puts a stake through that vampire's heart. Well, my guest today to discuss all this is veteran TV news producer, host of the Analyst Substack, former diplomat, and host of the Real American Sunrise Early Edition, Jake Novak. Jake, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
Thank you for joining me. I didn't bring my vampire steak, right? I brought my silver bullet to get the werewolf. But we'll get one of those monsters today, I promise.
Yeah. Hey man, I don't even think I'm being hyperbolic with my opening monologue on that opening clip there, Jake. This is it's disturbing, but it's not. It's disturbing, but it's not new to the Jewish community. For instance, they've had people invade their synagogue services. The Sikh community had an assassination inside a church service. Of course, Christian churches have been attacked inside and outside with active shooters in the last 5 years. But it is really beyond the pale when you have the political leadership and law enforcement leadership basically calling for this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, what a sick joke it is that these people think they can invade a church and think that they have the high moral ground. I want to give a preemptive warning to anyone who wants to debate me about any of the political positions I take or cultural economic positions I take. If you think that those decisions I make aren't based on a strong moral belief that each one of those positions I'm taking is correct, you really don't want to play with me, because that's exactly the way I think all the time. You guys are Johnny come latelys in the whole Christian Jewish religion thing. You don't know what you're talking about. I promise you, especially when we're talking about this issue at hand, illegal immigration, I promise you that we have the high moral ground. Illegal immigration is slavery. Anyone doing anything to perpetuate it, to protect it, is an agent of evil. As simple as that. And that's the way I feel. Now, I'm not going to shove it down your throat all the time about how you're evil and immoral all the time. But if you're going to try to play the morality, Christian, Jewish, God wants this, you're a fake religion, you better not play that game with me, because I'm much more prepared for it than you think. This, Rob, reminds me of when people come at me and say, like, well, religion has led to the deaths of so many people. And I always preemptively warn you, you don't want to play the death toll game with me between religion and non-religion. Communism and paganism have a much bigger death toll rate, even in just the last 100 years, than even if we include Islamist stuff. I'm telling you. So don't play these games with us. We're much more prepared for it. And, we can go into some of the details about how we're prepared for it. But there's a lot of other things going on with these attacks on churches. It's very telling, Rob. Very telling.
Yeah, it's interesting. It kind of seeped out in the stories about two things about this particular event. I'm sure because of the coverage of it, but it seeped out from the mouths of the people involved. One is that these are Southern Baptists and they don't practice the right kind of Christianity, and they're white people. It was the second one. That really surprised me, coming from the likes of Don Lemon, who said exactly that. They practice the wrong version of Christianity.
Just incredible. Suddenly he's a theologian. He can't spell theologian. I worked with him, as close to him for a while at CNN. We had a little bit of overlap there 15, 16, 17 years ago. He's notoriously one of the least educated, least erudite people on TV. And that's saying something, because there's some real dopes reading teleprompters right now. Neither one of us are. So there you go. But, there's something about hatred and crazy. They both have a lot of things in common. But one thing that hateful and crazy people have in common is they can't hide it. It's really hard to hide hate and mental illness. It just comes out. And I've been saying this for a long time, and in some ways I'm glad this happened, especially since no one was injured. I mean, I'm horrified that it happened, but at least there's a lesson to learn from that, which is, folks, the people who hate the law, a law like our laws against illegal immigration, which are completely moral and completely correct and supported by 80% of the American people who believe that illegal immigration is bad, and that's been a number that's been pretty consistent. People who hate the law, Colonel Maness, eventually, if not immediately, begin to hate God, because at the end of the day, it's God who's decided what's right and wrong, and that's another way of defining what a law is. They hate the idea of law, and they often attack religious people over that, because whether we're good religious people or not, whether we're following all of our own rules or not, at the end of the day, it's Judaism and Christianity that brought the idea of meritocracy. We're going to judge you by your good deeds and bad deeds. The idea of an accountability. We brought that to the world. And a lot of the people in the world will never forgive us for that. Again, I'm not saying that we're more righteous than anybody else. We're supposed to be, but that's another story. That's a personal discussion to have inside our churches and synagogues. But we brought the idea of a morality that never changes to the world, and rules that you have to follow, and you can't just go off and rape, kill, rob, and vandalize everybody. And for that, they hate us because they can't kill God, so they want to kill us. So it's not surprising to me that they're attacking churches. They will continue to do this until we find a way to stop them.
Yeah, do you think, as I do, under the definition of terrorism, which is to use action, a physical action, to try to get people to come to your political point of view and agree with you instead of the one they're on, do you think that this is an act of terrorism? That's what I think.
Yeah, this is reminding me of like Election Day in Iraq. I love how people talk about like election days in these countries as if there's some kind of swing vote to win. No, you win an election in a place like Iraq if you kill that everyone's going to vote according to their tribe. The Sunnis are going to vote for the Sunni candidates. The Shiites are going to vote for the Shiite candidates. And the winner is going to be based on who got killed more on their way to the polls. That's basically it. This is the world. They want to Iraqify and Balkanize America in that way. And I don't want to see that. You know, the swing voters can sometimes drive us crazy, Colonel Maness. Sometimes they're not that informed, right? You know, drives you nuts when you're like, after 6 months of a national election, you've got people who are, you know, the few honest people who say, I really don't know yet. And you're like, you don't know. It drives us crazy. But I'll take that any day over someone who just looks at their skin color or their religious group and already knows how they're going to vote and don't need any other kind of they're not going to change their mind. So yeah, this is the world these people want, is absolutely terrorism, and it's no coincidence that we see this in these terrorist countries where they do have some form of elections. It's a day of terror. Happens a lot in India too, by the way. India is the biggest democracy in the world, but they have attacks. Election day can be pretty dangerous in India. It takes a while for them to get through it. So I don't want to see America become like that, but they do.
Yeah, the first election day in Iraq, the Purple Finger Day election, was so dangerous that we had 3 B-1 bombers that I was in command of that squadron standing by in case the good guys needed us so we could stop them from killing people going to the polls. That's how dangerous it is in the Middle East, especially in that country of Iraq. But it's really, when you look at the ensuing videos that are coming out in Minneapolis right now, primarily on the streets there. I mean, I saw one yesterday where a group of these types of protesters were on the street stopping people for things like, well, a guy's wearing an old Army field jacket, stopping them and questioning them. Now, these people have no authority. They're stopping them, questioning them, and harassing them, accusing them of being ICE agents or officers and those kind of things. And then a second one showed a Somali crowd surrounding Nick Sorter. You know that name. He's an independent journalist that's been very active, both in Portland and in Minneapolis and around the country at these types of activities and actions and everything. A Somali crowd surrounded his vehicle and stole his $1,000 camera. And that resulted in basically nothing happening. And this event at the church, there were police, local police, Minneapolis police, and state police both present at that place, and they're not doing anything. They didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really mob tyranny and mob rule, and the police aren't going to get involved. I mean, a lot of us have been taught. I remember growing up, I came to New York after growing up mostly in the South around high school time, and I moved into a high crime area. Wonderful neighborhood. My block was wonderful people, but I did move into a high crime area of New York City. And I remember my parents saying, like, look, if someone gets into the front of the car or someone tries to carjack, drive them. And if you drive straight to the police station. And if you drag the guy who tried to carjack you underneath your car doing that, then just drive him right to the police station. You know, that I would love to give that advice to people in Minneapolis, but I can't, because the police might end up arresting you or attacking you. It's a complete mob mentality right there. We've heard about a lot of the good police officers in Minneapolis, St. Paul, resigning and trying to join ICE, which is an interesting development. But obviously there's still plenty of brass. I mean, I saw a lot of police brass a couple of weeks ago after the Renee Good incident, nodding in approval when Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry said to ICE, get the F out of Minneapolis. I'm thinking, like, you're a police officer and you're nodding at this kind of nonsense? So pretty scary. But it is a mob rule type thing going on over there. It's really dystopian. It feels like some of these science fiction movies that have been out there. It reminds me of early Bolshevik kind of stuff, where even before the Bolsheviks completely took over the Soviet Union in the 1917 revolution, in little towns and neighborhoods where they took control, they set up star chamber like interrogation rooms where they would ask you, did you help the czar? Well, you know, what kind of property do you have? They weren't even in control of the government yet in Moscow or St. Petersburg, and they were doing that already. So that's what this feels like, and it's really chilling.
That's what it is, Jake. We know that these are Marxists, and the Islamist Marxist axis, that intersection of those two ideologies is very active, obviously, in the United States here. And this is an exact replica of that,
Yes.
and it's only gonna happen. It's guaranteed to happen if we don't disrupt it. Well, we got to take a break. When we come back, Davos. Got a great clip from Howard Lutnick, and the president spoke this morning. So you guys are going to love this one. We'll be right back with Jake Novak.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
Okay. We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty on any other nation. And if you're going to be dependent on someone, it darn well better be your best allies. Okay? And so that is a different way of thinking. It is completely different than the WEF. I viewed the WEF as not a flagpole in the middle, but in fact, they are the flag. Whichever way the wind blew, so it blew. You should have solar, you should have wind. Why are you going to do solar and wind? Why would Europe agree to be net zero in 2030 when they don't make a battery? They don't make a battery. So if they go 2030, they are deciding to be subservient to China, who makes the batteries.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, and we're talking about it. The stake in the heart of globalism. That's what needs to happen. That is what is happening. Lutnick should have just had the wooden stake and the mallet right there in his hands as he was talking. And my guest today is Jake Novak, who is a great network news producer, was a diplomat, and currently is hosting the real American Sunrise Early Edition, and is on his Substack too. Jake, that was a great little piece from Howard there, and I think he captures it quite well.
He does, and for those of I want to give an answer to his question, because it isn't just a rhetorical question. Why would Europe sell out its energy independence to not only China but also Russia? And the answers are many. Of course, the easiest answer, and one that is partially correct, is that you have elites within those countries who found a way to personally profit by it, even though it endangered their country. So that of course, is always true. But there's another factor here. Europe is incredibly arrogant about its importance in the world. And after a while, I think they just started to believe their own BS. They believe that they were as important as they think they are. They're so irrelevant in the world right now for so many reasons, mostly their own doing. And they must have thought that if they lead the way on net zero stuff, everything else will be fine. They don't realize that they're bit players in this game. And something I tweeted at you just about an hour ago or so. This really, I have a question to ask you and many other people. Starting with General Montgomery, Monty in World War II, how much blood and treasure has the United States had to pay to basically placate the arrogance of annoying European leaders? I mean, I think World War II was prolonged because we were trying to massage this guy's arrogant ego. With passion, we could have ended the war maybe 6 months earlier. I think. I know that some people agree, some people think it could have been even faster than that. But that's the first big example that stands out to me. I'm sure there were some before that. But, we're massaging the ego of Europe and trying to pretend that they're important. Their militaries are badly supplied, badly trained. They're a joke, and we're asking them to pay for it a little bit more, but they can pay all they want. They need to have more of a deterrence than a real serious military. They don't have that. Their militaries are almost like some civil service job. People join the military to get breaks on medical school tuition and things like that. It's not the way that we look at our military in any way. So, Howard's 100% right. And I also believe that just the idea of everyone competing is better than collusion. And the World Economic Forum in Davos has always stood for collusion by unaccountable people who go up literally at the top of a mountain. I mean, they're so much in a bubble, they don't even realize how bad the optics of this. They go up high on a mountaintop, away from the public, so they can collude over what's best for the world. And it would be really better if everyone who showed up there, we just built a fence around it and never let them leave. That would really be a great thing. But they're trying to be, this unaccountable thing. And when I was producing at Fox Business for years, I wanted to cover Davos, but from the bottom of the mountain and throw rhetorical rocks up at the mountain and just talk about how everyone else was fawning over everyone. They're going to the parties and kissing the butts of every CEO and political leader there. And then we would do a show from the bottom of the mountain saying, my God, these people are delusional. They're dangerous. But it's good they're all in one place because now we can confine them there. Maybe we can give them like a disease or something so they can't ever leave. Honestly, it would be a better world if we did that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And if you look at what some of the leaders said, the president of Finland, I think he's called the president, just said from the stage that Europe doesn't need the United States forces to be there to protect them. And I'm like, okay, let's bring them home.
Yeah.
There's no need for us to be there. Matter of fact, Dwight Eisenhower said when he was the first Supreme Allied Commander of Europe under NATO, said that if we're still here with our forces in 10 years, then NATO has failed in its mission. Obviously, it's an abject failure because my entire lifetime was after that, and I spent a lot of it supporting NATO and those kind of things. The immigration thing's closely linked. That's why I had these two things together on the show. How far gone is Europe compared to where we're at in the United States? And as people have seen, I mean, we're in pretty bad shape in the United States, in pockets at least, in our blue cities, from an illegal immigration and even legal immigration perspective. And things are going downhill fast. Where is Europe at today?
Yeah, this is very much an economic story about Europe. It isn't just, they don't have a great military, and we make jokes about the French always surrendering. I mean, that's a good joke. But it's very much an economic story. Here's the truth. Europe, the EU nations have basically no middle class. It's like French Revolution times. They have a very wealthy class and they have a very poor class. And the very wealthy aren't interested in building up the middle class. They just want to make sure they have enough servants, a service economy that works for them. So that's why they've been so much in favor of massive migration, because they need servants. I don't know how many of these migrants from Africa or Asia or whatever are actually helping their service economy, but some of them must be. So that's what they're looking for. They have no middle class. They have no birth rate to speak of. Their birth rate is negative in a lot of these countries. So they're really, that's one of the reasons why they plugged into this. Now, the birth rate in the United States over the last 15 years or so has also slowed down. But we do have a middle class in this country. We do have a growing population, even over and above illegal immigration. We're not at negative birth rates in America, and we don't need this massive illegal immigration or legal immigration to boost our population here. We don't need that. But Europe kind of does. And again, in addition to the corruption, you know that there's people who are making money off of the human trafficking and everything else like that. But over and above that, Europe has no middle class. It has no expanding. It has no small business culture there. You know, here in the United States, our economy grows because of small business, not because of big business. So they don't have that, and so they're stuck, and they've been a failure. So the abject failure that President Eisenhower, when he was SACEUR, before he was president, is talking about, he was probably thinking more along military terms, but he should have looked at the economic possibilities there and realized it was going to be a failure, because the economy is a big reason why NATO is a failure, more than I think even the military reasons behind it.
Do you see, and are you concerned about our middle class? Because quite honestly, when you read about and talk to people from Gen Z about not being able to buy a home, not being able to raise a family on one income, not being able to afford this or that, this in large part is caused by legal and illegal immigration, isn't it? And it's beginning to take its toll.
It's also because of our misplaced culture. You know, we've had 70 years plus in America where we've told every young person in America that they have to go to a 4-year college, that white collar working is really the only thing worth shooting for. If you end up getting a blue collar job, maybe you can join one of those good unions and get a good deal, but that's not something that we push our children to. So there's good news and bad news in all of that. The bad news is we brainwashed multiple generations of American people right now that they have to go to college and they can only really work in an office somewhere. The good news is it's easily fixable. And we're starting to see a lot of examples of that. I mean, I wish I could go to every young person living in Brooklyn right now who's living with 6 roommates, they can't afford their rent, and just say, like, you know what? Your quality of life is more important than your job title. Move to one of these other states, move to a red state, maybe get a job where you're working some kind of blue collar job or something like that. You'll have much more freedom. You'll have nicer weather maybe, and you won't have to live with 6 roommates when you're 40. That would be a ridiculous argument for me to make 20 years ago. No one would listen to it. But now, I think you agree. I think a lot of the viewers and listeners would agree. You're starting to see some traction with that argument. You're starting to see, even in the blue cities and blue states, people saying, you know what? Maybe my kid should be a plumber. Maybe they should maybe we should open a store. Maybe they don't need to go to law school or med school to have a pride in their lives and quality of life. You're hearing that more even in the blue states right now. So I'm more optimistic about that lately. And of course, we have policies to back it up. I talk about this all the time. And enough people, even people who support President Trump a lot, don't talk about this enough, let alone, I don't even know if a lot of them know about it. But the tax policies of this administration, starting from its first term and now with the One Big Beautiful Bill, is the most positive trickle-up tax policy we've ever seen, especially for people who tend to be blue-collar workers. The doubling of the standard deduction for people who don't itemize their taxes because they don't have big real estate holdings and things like that, or property taxes, is the huge shot in the arm to blue-collar America. If you own one Ford F-150 and you've got a contracting business or you work as a plumber, I mean, it's a huge shot in your arm. And now got another policy thrown in there, which is almost everything is deductible. If you own a small or medium-sized business in America, blue collar especially, and you buy a laptop, a cell phone, that's completely deductible now. The depreciation rules have changed. So I'm optimistic, Colonel, because the policies and even the cultural speak in America is starting to change to the point where we can tell the middle class and even the upper middle class that there's a lot of ways to have a good quality of life without importing a bunch of menial, really slave labor, which is, again, illegal immigration is slavery.
Oh, absolutely. Look, if you're listening to this, folks, come on down to the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. We have a need for thousands of welders. America is trying to expand and create new shipbuilding yards. And we have 3 or 4 shipbuilders between Mississippi and Louisiana. Actually, it's 5 in Mobile, Alabama, right here on this stretch of coast. You can get free welding training from the community college here. You just need to come on down and get involved in that. And it is good pay, good benefits, and it's long-term. Those are long-term jobs. There's a vast shortage of welders in this country, especially since the president is reinvigorating our manufacturing base here in the United States. We've got to take another break. When we come back, I I got to get your take on the Board of Peace. Jake, big story that came out this week that Vladimir Putin was appointed to the Board of Peace. And then there's some other things. We got an interesting clip coming up. We'll be right back with Jake Novak.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Would you like to gain access to over 20 years of my radio shows, TV shows, my books? I've written 15 books, and most of those books are ebooks now. And we have conference DVDs, conferences where we filmed our conferences at the Ozarks, literally starting 20 years ago. It's all available in our archived vault. All you have to do is go to worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and for a reasonable monthly fee, you gain access to over 20 years of Christian worldview programming, news, information, books, documentaries, and a powerful search engine. And folks, it's a great way not only to educate yourself, equip yourself, but it's a big way that you can help fund our continuation as a broadcast network. Please check it out. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and help us continue pushing out a Christian worldview.
You know, it sounds like it should be in the top 10 choices is a Palestinian person, which does not appear on this peace board. And that's how we know that Donald Trump's alleged ceasefire, which the state of Israel has violated countless times, by the way, is just a facade. And
you're going to let the aggressors in this war onto the peace board? I don't think so.
Who are the aggressors in this war?
Hamas, the Palestinians, Hamas that invaded Israel, that raped, murdered, kidnapped, and tortured the Israelis. That
are you
took
claiming
hostages,
right now that the state of Israel has never committed rape, torture, or murder against innocent Palestinians? Can you make that claim?
The entire reason we have this war is because of October the 7th. So, no, I don't think they should be invited to be on the peace board until they, demilitarize and do the rest of the things they're supposed to do.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Wednesday, Whistleblower Wednesday. My guest is Jake Novak. Jake, you know, I used to think Jennings was a little bit of a rhino and everything, but he talks the right game. Now, this peace board is very interesting. The president's got it rolling now. And there's a story this week that Vladimir Putin's been invited to be on it. What do you make of that?
Well, you know, a lot of your viewers and listeners may not know the incredible connection between Russia and the state of Israel. It doesn't matter who the regime is in control of the regime. There's a tremendous amount of Russian and Ukrainian-born and heritage people living in the state of Israel right now, and they're not some kind of like immigrant population off in the outskirts of town. They are a vital part of Israel. The technological boom. Israel was always punching above its weight on technology. But it wasn't until the end of the Soviet Union in the late 80s, early 90s, when a massive number of Russian Jews came to Israel, that Israel became the tech powerhouse that it truly is. Yeah, you can say what you want about Russia, and there's a lot of problems there, and there's a lot of pathetic stuff going on there, but their engineering and science education is absolutely fantastic, and it's foolish for anyone to say otherwise. When the Ukraine war started, and the mainstream media here in America was trying to portray Russia as just a gas station, I mean, I thought to myself, like, you know, the smartest people in the Israeli military, and this is saying something because there are a lot of smart people in that military, they're the Russians. Everybody knows it. The smartest startup business people in Israel are the Russians. So the idea that the Russian government wouldn't play a role in what's going to happen over there is naive. It's going to play a role. They've been in Syria for so long, things like that. No, I don't like Vladimir Putin. No, I don't trust him. But, you know, we're asking these people to pay $1 billion a year or something like that to stay on the board. I don't know. I mean, it's probably just an olive branch to Putin to make him feel important. Who knows? Or to maybe at least to get him not to undermine it. But the whole idea of this peace board is to undermine the UN, which has been a complete disaster. The UN has been an absolute ally of Hamas in that region, especially in Gaza for a long time. So anything to replace those guys, no matter how effectual the peace board may or may not end up being, is fine by me. It's kind of like replacing the Nazis with some partisan group that, you know, also probably killed a lot of innocent people, but who cares? I'll take it. It's an upgrade. So, you know, look, but, you know, the idea of putting a Palestinian on it, this is so funny, although also quite frustrating. You know, we talk about things like two-state solution, and that idiot on CNN debating Scott Jennings talk about a Palestinian on the board. No one ever bothers to ask the Palestinians, The Palestinians don't want a state. They don't. They've never accepted it. They've always said we would rather die than have a state next to Israel. And so any Palestinian who would take a position on that peace board would be dead tomorrow. So they ain't going to take that position. This is such a rhetorical college dorm room argument that means nothing in the real world. And I love how Scott Jennings handled it. But one of the things I would say is there's not one Palestinian who's willing to sit on that board, you moron. Ask Anwar Sadat what happens when you try to make peace and remain a leader in the Muslim Arab world. It doesn't work in that world. So, yeah, it's such a stupid argument.
Yeah. Do you think the Putin thing is maybe the president's overt attempt to bring Russia back into the family of nations or begin that process, and is linked to his discussions with him about ending the war in Ukraine?
Well, I think he'd like them to basically pay some of the bills. You know, if Russia wants to have certain prominence in the world, maybe get them to pay the $1 billion or take in some of these people. I don't know. I mean, to put them into Syria. To me, Gaza is an entire population of Gaza is almost entirely people who would rather die than live next to a free Jewish state. They've been telling us this over and over since 1933. It's time we listen to them. I mean, I've been listening to them. I know you have too. And there's really, to me, no easy solution there other than really almost trying to weed out the population as much as possible, take them into other countries, not the United States, but other countries near them, and really kind of start over. I don't see a Trump casino on the shores of the Mediterranean in Gaza. I don't see it, not because it wouldn't be nice, but because you're dealing with a population there that would rather die than live in peace with anybody, especially the Jews. So, and it really, this is just about maintenance of a ceasefire, and I think that's the best we can get for the next generation.
Well, why aren't, maybe this is a naive question, but it's always puzzled me that the Egyptians, the Jordanians, and the Syrians and the Iraqis haven't just absorbed these people. They're Muslims. It's my understanding most of them are. Anyway, there are a few Christians and other religions in this group, but why not just absorb all of them into their populations and end this what do they call it, being imprisoned in Gaza myth?
Yeah, the open air prison. Well, they're not just Muslims, Rob. There also happen to be Egyptians and Jordanians. You know, what too many people don't understand is that before the year 1880 or so, the population of what we now call Israel, including Gaza and Judea and Samaria, what other people call the West Bank, was barely at 40,000. I mean, it was a very, very unpopulated area. A massive number of people started to populate the area from other countries, some of whom had family connections and generational connections to the land of Israel, some of whom didn't. The biggest reason why you had massive population increase starting in that decade of the 1880s is because Jews from Europe started to return to the land of Israel and to join the very small amount of Jews who had never left. There's been a Jewish community in Israel continuously, never ended for at least 6,000 years, but the Jews from Europe started to come in small numbers, but consistent numbers, and they started to hire and put out a for hire sign to help rebuild the land. And word got out in Egypt and throughout the Ottoman Empire that the Jews were hiring, they were paying well, and they were good people. They would treat you well. And so a massive amount of both legal and illegal immigrants, sound familiar, started flooding into the area to work with the Jews and for the Jews. That was why they came. They didn't come there for the weather. They didn't come there for the football games and have either. That's not why they came. So, yeah, it's a huge question. Why don't they do it? So the reason that's always been the truth for a long time is they've always felt like it's worth sacrificing these people, using them as human cannon fodder to make Israel look bad, rather than do the right thing and take in their own brothers and sisters and their own former countrymen. The other reason is these people have, when they do come into back into an Arab country, they end up wreaking havoc. Look up Black September in 1970, when Palestinian terrorists ran away after the Six-Day War, ran back into Jordan. They attempted almost immediately to overthrow King Hussein, and he killed a lot of them. And where did they go after that? Then they went to Lebanon, and they started the misnamed Lebanese Civil War. It wasn't a civil war, folks. It was an invasion, a Palestinian terrorist who came into Beirut and caused a terrible war there. So there's your answer. They've got a track record of causing mayhem and death everywhere they go. So why would you invite them in? And that's really the answer to your question.
Yeah, and Lebanon was a historically Christian nation.
Yes.
The majority of folks there were Christians at that time, and we see what's happened since then. And it's turned into just another third world crap hole.
Yeah.
I have to keep it family friendly on this show.
That's right.
But those are just the facts, man. On the board of peace, the Turks are involved, and they're involved with I guess they're peacekeeping forces, or maybe they're implementation forces of the agreement. Any concerns about that especially from Israel?
I got a million concerns about it. I really don't think this board of peace is going to have much teeth to it. I think this is a Donald Trump like blue ribbon panel thinking like it's some kind of real estate board. I think it's understood that the United States and Israel will be administering this. The last time we spoke, I was very encouraged by the fact that maybe Indonesia, which is the largest Muslim population country in the world, would get involved on the ground there because they're not Arab Muslims and they're much more moderate there for real. The religious Muslim leader in Indonesia, who really has a lot of influential power there, is a wonderful person. I've actually met him personally. I met him at a conference at Princeton back in 2024. But I'm not hearing much more about that. I think this is more about getting some financial skin in the game from as many countries as possible in that region, and also Russia and maybe a European country, so that they can't just abandon it after all the years of flooding money into these Hamas and more importantly, the Palestinian Authority, and not caring what happens with the money and knowing it's all going to terrorism. I think it's a way of getting them to start using throw good money after what was bad, but maybe hopefully change that trajectory.
Yeah, I just read an article before we came on air. I can't remember the individual's name, but there was a Palestinian person that set up an NGO. Imagine that. It has had 730 million tax dollars flowed into it, and they caught them. The companies that were part of this conglomerate or whatever it was were the ones that were building the concrete tunnels and the weaponization infrastructure, the militarization infrastructure in Gaza, using my tax dollars.
By the way, that's a great way for me to make a point I often make. The people who hate Israel are always talking about foreign money going to Israel, American dollars going to Israel. We need to cut off all foreign aid, all foreign loan guarantees. And to that, I say, bring it. Bring it. Because if you cut off all foreign aid to all the world, Israel will come out way ahead. We found this out, especially we finally got the evidence when they started to close down the USAID office. And the amount of money that's been going under the radar to the terrorists and the killers of both Americans and Israelis far outweighs any money that's been going to the state of Israel in the form of loan guarantees and things like that to buy weapons. So if you go to a net zero foreign aid account, bring it, baby, because the good guys will come out ahead. The United States and Israel will both come out ahead. So don't think that that's the slam dunk you think it is. Because if you cut off all foreign aid and stop all this nonsense through NGOs, etc., it'll be a big win for the good guys in the end. And so I say again, bring it, cut it all off, and you'll see who wins in the end.
I think Prime Minister Netanyahu agrees with you. Hasn't he assigned a task force to develop the roadmap so that when all foreign aid from the United States is cut off, they're able to go?
Yeah, they've been talking about that since Yitzhak Rabin in 1994. So that is absolutely a desire of the state of Israel to have self-reliance. It's part of their founding doctrine, never to rely on the rest of the world ever again, because the rest of the world turned its back on 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. And so they know they can't do that. So they're always making sure that they have a little bit more autonomy. That said, there still hasn't been a formula created yet where Israel can go on without big support, mostly political, less money than political, but without the political friendship and allyship of the United States, I don't think there's any formula for Israel to survive. They can survive without the money because of what I just described, and because their own economy is doing well, but they can't survive without the political support of the United States. I don't see that world yet, but it's definitely admirable for any country, any ally of ours, to try to be more independent and to relieve America's responsibilities in foreign theaters. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's generally talking just about the money. So I agree with you, though, and I think Netanyahu's team probably sees this too. Israel doesn't really need the money over the long term to sustain its ability to defend itself. But the political support is crucial. We see that with the uprising and the revolutionaries in the country of Iran. They desire more political support than any other thing. Very few of them call for America to intervene militarily or even provide guns, which I'd be happy to be able to provide them some guns if we can get them to them without American forces being involved in it. We got to take our last break, Jake. When we come back, look, January 20th just passed. It's been a great year. We're gonna wrap this show up talking about how successful this Trump administration is. It really is. I'll be right back with Jake Novak.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.
There's that saying, Trump was right about everything, and that's kind of how I'm feeling right now.
This breakfast conversation, our sixth visit with Betsy Sarcone, dating back to August 2023. Her shift, beyond dramatic. A DeSantis, then a Haley voter, said she would vote for Joe Biden if Trump won the Republican nomination. But she changed her mind.
I think Biden probably changed me more than Trump. I think watching nothing be done, for 4 years about an open border.
Now she gives Trump an A-, loves the immigration crackdown, just closed a big real estate sale, and thinks the economy is picking up. Sarcone laughed at Trump's 2020 election fraud claims when we first met. Another big change.
I'm starting to question the election of 2020, right?
He lost the election in 2020.
I don't know.
He lost the election in 2020.
The suburbs revolted against Trump in his first midterm, and Democrats are banking on it again. But Republicans don't have to worry about Sarcone. She likes Congressman Nunn and loves that her daughters can use a school choice plan.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, and it's Wednesday, and it's been a wild one, and it's been a wild year. My guest today is Jake Novak, and Jake, I think I can say that Trump 47 is a win this first year just based on that video with that white liberal woman. Former.
Yeah, and I was glad that they focused on a lot of the economic stuff. I believe the economy is doing better than most people expected, and I include people who supported President Trump. I'm not talking about the naysayers here. There are definite still problems in the economy, most notably the real estate market and the home sales. Yeah. And I know that that's going to be a focus in the coming year for the Trump administration. But we haven't seen a drop off in hiring. We haven't seen an increase in hiring, a significant increase either, but there has been no drop off in hiring. Inflation is slowing down, although it's still too high. And I remember the Reagan administration putting out ads in 1983 with a woman talking about, like, inflation is still too high, but things are doing well. They should resurrect that commercial, maybe get another woman. She's probably passed away by now. That was 43 years ago. But, things like that. And more importantly, the incredible positives that are already happening because of the one big beautiful bill. Again, Trump supporters, if you're a Trump supporter, listen, if you're not a Trump supporter, whatever. But if you are a Trump supporter, please get better versed in the aspects of that bill and what it's doing for our economy. You probably do know that we're predicting a 5% growth rate for the current quarter. That's a crazy high number. Anything higher than 2.5% is usually good. 5% is high. That has a lot to do with recovering from some of the nonsense of the Biden administration, but also these things I talked about. small businesses being able to do more because they're able to write off their expenditures. The fact that that standardized deduction has been not only doubled like it was in 2017, but it was more than doubled, and it got expanded. Remember, the Democrats were going to kill that. So the One Big Beautiful Bill protected that and gave more certainty to your contractors, plumbers, and greenskeepers, landscapers in the country, people like that. So it's a lot of positives about to start showing up. And I do think it will start showing up in the jobs reports coming out. I do think we're going to see some good expansion there, even with AI slowing it down a bit. Because again, AI is really hitting the big businesses in this country, and big businesses in America don't create net jobs. And you might say, oh, Jake, they moved to my neighborhood. And yeah, but they moved to your neighborhood and hired 100 people, but they killed 100 jobs somewhere else. Small business is the net new job creation in America, and this One Big Beautiful Bill is really helping them. And I think we're going to start seeing the results of that. I think we already are, but I think it's going to be more evident real soon.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, they should hire that woman to do the commercial about the economy and inflation.
Yeah, the one from Iowa,
What is the first thing that's really going to hit people in the face in the Big Beautiful Bill? The tax stuff as they come out to fill out their taxes, or are you expecting people to get large refunds?
Yeah, you know, now here's the disclaimer, because you got some savvy viewers and listeners. Usually, if you get a big refund, it's actually nothing to celebrate. That means you were a moron and lent the government free money all year. But I'm going to give you a dispensation this time, because there was no way to really gauge exactly how the tax rules were going to change a year ago. So not your fault. So I'm giving you a one-time guilt-free larger refund for a lot of millions of Americans are going to get a much larger refund. I mean, that extra money in the system is going to start showing up probably in late March, certainly in late April. And this could be a really strong summer for domestic travel. Again, I don't give stock advice, but I'd be looking at some of those theme parks. I'd be looking at some of these resorts. I'd be looking at some of the car companies. The car companies are going to sell a lot of crossover cars. There's going to be some real price competition, by the way, in the auto arena. I just saw a couple of cars. They're actually lowering prices because they really need to sell some of these things. So, you're going to get, it's going to hit you in the face. A lot of you are going to get a much bigger refund than you've ever seen before. And again, don't forget, it's not your fault. It's not because you gave the government too much money. There was just no way to guess when that bill would pass, how it would affect exactly. Now we know because it got passed. So don't feel bad about it when you see a big refund and people are going to get big refunds. Maybe that will spur people to file earlier this year, which is also a good thing. It gets all that slowdown in the economy connected to people waiting on tax stuff out of the system. That's actually also an incentive for the economy too.
Yeah. What about energy prices? Is that going to help lower prices at the retail level, especially on places like groceries and those kind of things, and make it happen faster?
Yes and no. I mean, a lot of the reduction in our gasoline and energy prices has already hit in a good way our grocery prices and things like that. We would have to see a real massive reduction to something like $1.50 national average for a gallon of gas. We're in the 280s right now, which is a big improvement. And of course, there's a lot of people watching right now who probably are getting gas for a lot less than that. I mean, I'm in Long Island, New York, typically a very high price place for gasoline, and I've been filling up for the 250s a gallon lately. So that's good. I don't know if there's much more we can get out of that. It's really good. It really needs to be sustained. I don't want to lose it. But what we're going to need is more supply chain and regulation removal to really see some of the things that we need to see, for example, with grocery stores and stuff like that. Right now, one of the reasons why we're having some inflation is AI. I do believe AI is a cost-reductive technology, but not when you're first investing in it. And the investment costs in AI are through the roof. And every couple of months, Wall Street looks at the amount of money that's being invested in AI and is like, maybe we're overspending. And then they realize, no, it's kind of like, this is it. There's really no other way to go. And then they end up making all that money back after selling off over their cold feet. But understand, companies that are looking to save money 10 years out or 5 years out from AI are spending a lot of money now on that. And they're going to pass that on to the consumers. And one of the biggest users of AI are these supply chain companies, the companies that are shipping the food, the companies that are dealing with grocery stores and figuring out how to stock them properly. AI is a big part of that technology. But on the positive side, you've got companies like Walmart that are ahead of the game with that kind of AI technology. They've started to get to the mountaintop already with their AI spending curve, and they're starting to see that plateau a little bit. So if you can shop for groceries at a Walmart, you might start seeing, you might start seeing some relief there before you see it at your Albertson or certainly your Whole Foods.
Yeah, does that bleed over into their Sam's Club market too?
Yeah, Walmart has been de-emphasizing Sam's Club for a long time now. I think they've basically declared surrendered in many ways to Costco on that, and by the way, they're happy with that. Walmart now, by the way, another thing about Walmart that I talk about all the time, the Walmart.com experience is absolutely superior now, let alone competitive to Amazon.com. It's a great website. It is intuitive. It is using AI technology better than Amazon to help you with that. And it's a big reason why Walmart has been growing. It's not just because people can't afford to go to Whole Foods anymore and Trump is terrible and we can't. It's also because buying online at Walmart has become a great experience, in my opinion.
Especially on the grocery side. I know my wife uses it and makes me use it. It seems to make it pretty painless most of the time. There's an occasional glitch or anything. Let's talk a little bit about the success in national security so far. And I say so far because, I mean, national security changes are long-term issues generally. How do you see the administration's success? I mean, they issued their national security strategy a month ago or so, and number one priority is strengthening the Western Hemisphere, and the president's team has been focused on that. But there's also a peripheral target on that, and that is China and a little bit Russia, but mostly China and their Belt and Road Initiative, their burgeoning large combat navy, extremely large sea lift capacity, shipbuilding capacity. All of that is rolled into the new national security strategy and national military strategy that we see playing out. And I think I give the president an A+ on not getting us into endless wars. So far, he's demonstrated a use of military power that I voted for, which is what we saw with the Soleimani action in the first administration that got everybody's attention. What are your thoughts on all that?
Well, my favorite thing about all of this, beyond, of course, the successes there, and I do feel safer, is the fact that it's really exposed who the real America First people are and who they aren't. All these people who for years who were saying, why are we sending troops to the Gulf or all these other places or Vietnam, or when we've got problems, our own borders are threatened, and they finally got what they supposedly wanted. So why are some of these phony America Firsters against the actions in Venezuela or Greenland? I mean, these are literally threats to our own border, more than just a threat. They've penetrated our border with drugs and terrorist groups and other kinds and gangs and the whole thing. And so finally we have a president who's prioritizing that, and they don't like that either, which has proved who the real America First people are and who they aren't. If you claim to be America First and you've got a problem with what happened in Venezuela, then you're a phony. I'm sorry, you just are. This is a real threat to our country. We've had a tremendous drop-off in overdose deaths in the last year. It's fantastic news. This is an example of how near our regional you can call it foreign policy if you want to, because obviously technically Venezuela is another country, but this is how our regional focus on our own borders, our proximity foreign policy, let's call it, has real positive effects on mainstream America. And there's a lot of other examples of that as well. This is long overdue. This idea that Trump is the adventurous aggressor when it's China and Russia and Iran that have been meddling in our hemisphere and on our border and in our waterways for years is infuriating. It's infuriating. He's just pushing back on what these people have been doing, what these nations have been doing for decades, and it had to stop. I love it. The closing down of the border is absolutely, when somebody asked me yesterday, what's the top 5 accomplishments of the first year? And, I go to the border shutdown always is number one, and I've got others, the destruction of the Iranian nuclear sites to me is in the top 5. There's a bunch of, I got a top 5, but that's in there. And that's usually my number one.
Yeah. And, to interdicting those aggressive behaviors from countries like China is what Greenland is all about. And establishing the Golden Dome capability. Without Greenland, you can do it, but it's not going to be nearly as close to 100% effective as we want it to be if we're going to invest that kind of money in that kind of system. All right, Jake. So you've had some changes in the show over the last few weeks. Got about 30 seconds. Update everybody. Tell folks where they can find you. And thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to have you on as a regular as long as I can.
I appreciate it. Yeah, listen, just follow me on X, because on X, if I'm not doing something right on X, I'm posting the link to where you can find it. But my X is at JakeNY, and every morning around 7, 8 a.m., I'm doing a show from my studio here. All the great content that used to be on another platform, it's all there. I have a Substack. Just do Jake Novak, N-O-V-A-K Substack on your search, and you can subscribe for free there if you like. If you want to do a paid subscription, that's fine too. Whatever you want to do. There's a lot of content every day that I'm producing. About 30 minutes of content in the morning, a business update that's about 2 minutes, a top news update that's about 3 minutes, and my Moving America car and truck news every single day, 5 days a week. That's also available on Substack, all for free if you'd like. So you can all just follow me on Twitter and X. It's the easiest way to capture all of those links.
I'm a big fan of all of it, but especially the car stuff. I've been a car guy since I was a little kid, so I appreciate what you're doing there. All right, man. We'll see you next time. Take care. Tomorrow's Truth Thursday. It's going to be a doozy. I'll see you then.